Because I took in everything I had to take in. I read from the book and I understand it before I take it in. It will take time for me to explain, and it takes time, and time is all that matters. Because the living God has not come to prove himself. Jehovah God has not come to prove himself. Allah has not come to prove himself. Buddha has not come to prove himself. All this have not been proved. It's all based on words and information that we have in the books that we read. So it's up to you to understand it. It's up to you to read with understanding. You don't wait there for somebody to feed you with the information. Standing in the pulpit or stand somewhere and reading it, and he is feeding you information. He is explaining to you because he has studied it. Like I am feeding you information. I'm giving you the key to yourself. Tell you that. Try and look at it yourself and think it through. Even what I'm saying, think it through. I am only giving you some awareness to remember, some questions to ask yourself when you're reading through the text, or you've heard a text given to you by somebody, and or somebody has given you a book. You are reading through that. I just ask you that the questions I ask myself, I want you to ask those questions too. Ask yourself, and sometimes you can even have other questions that I haven't even thought of. And ask you those questions. You have to question everything. Because you are defending your faith, and you have to have your own. You have to have a faith. The faith is something relating to believing in something. If you haven't questioned and examined it and have a clear understanding, how do you then believe in it? Before you even have faith. You relate to a friend, and you know who the friend is. Then you say, I have faith in this guy. In the same manner, you want to know God. You know who God is. You relate to God. Then you have faith in God. That's how it is. That's how it works in all ways. But there are so many people who are like empty shells. They just go in there. They listen to a verse, a quotation. They are happy with the quotation or that, with no understanding to it. They just don't relate it to any of the entire book. They don't even have time to read these things and find out themselves whatever it is. They don't ask them questions that they have to ask themselves. They jump to the ground. They probably go home or leave that premises or whatever they are, and they enter somewhere else and they move on with their life and say, I got this quotation. Whether that quotation is irrelevant to his life or relevant to his life, he hasn't even looked into it. Whether that quotation is a misquoted word, whether it is true or it is not true, they don't even look at it and see how relevant it is. Boom, it sounded good to me, so yeah. And before he fall into a very terrible situation in life, then this quotation does not become meaningful to him anymore. Then he realizes, but why did I become so obedient and listening, and I went through all that, and still look at what has happened to my life? Just like I'm talking, just like me myself, I'm a perfect example, the embodiment of example. Look at me and then see what I'm trying to say. I know what I'm talking about. Many are in the same situation. Many are also caught up in the captive state, being captured into that, trapped into this situation. I believe that many religions, almost every single religious person, if you fall into this, you're falling into any group, whichever group you're into, you are in a trap, you are in a very trapped situation. Somebody has formed a kingdom, you are part of that. But you are not free. You can free yourself only by looking to the test that you have. But you are not, you are convincing yourself that you are free. Because that's what you've been told. But you have not really thought it through, but your own single mind. The day you begin to have that independent approach to life, by first taking the first step, backwards, so you can get out of the door and look at the house that you were inside. The house that you were inside, the institution that you were into. You go out of that institution and look at the shape of it. Examine all the things you've been hearing. Ask yourself your own personal question. Have your independent mind. You can never come to that moment of realizing it, what I'm talking about here, and seeing that you are rather free by coming out and looking at it. But you can never be free. It won't be easy doing it from inside, because it won't happen. There are rules and regulations for being there. You have to abide by it. You're caught by your hands, all that, and your legs, and you're being pinned down like that with words, with whatever information and all the rules and regulations putting around your life. Do you think even if you have an independent mind, you can set yourself free? No. You have been captured. You might not be having chains and handcuffs on you, but you've been captured mentally. You are being controlled mentally. Somebody had to speak, give you guidance to your life, no matter how old you are. You ask yourself, is that okay? They give the guide before you can go, and then you also guide your children. So your whole entire family and you yourself, family that's breathing out of it, is all into the same coffers. Now, am I saying be independent, become independent and go out there and become stubborn and have your... No. If you're a sound person and you've been recognized as a sound person to be adapted into an institution, then that is sickening. This is a place where people who are not sound, people who cannot take their own decisions, people who are mentally slow, they're disordered, their disorder is mental disorder, it could be anything. They deserve to be in such places. They need the guidance. The brain cannot actually activate well. But you are finding people who are brilliant, excellent people, dedicated people who are being caught up in that situation. Or they are there, even sometimes they are there misleading others or helping to establish the situation by bringing other people who are capable of building their life, well, or having their own independent mind to fall into the same snare. And that is the sad thing about it. That is what I am talking about. And as this thing has continued generationally, we've transferred it to our children. We've infected the children we have and all that. So it is something that has become part of us, and we have to then look at it that this is where the roots of the problem is. Now, how am I saying that these are the problems? Why am I pointing fingers at it? Because they are good morals. It tells you not to fornicate. It tells you not to adulterate. It tells you not to do that, to do that. But you do it anyway. So it tells you or does not tell you. It doesn't matter. You understand? But that is not the only thing it tells you. That's not a good thing. We have to find out whether those things that it's telling you, is it good or bad? Does it tell you that it's good or bad? It tells you that it's bad, straightforward. But indirectly, it also tells you somewhere in so many books that you have to be, it's part of you. You have to engage in that. Sometimes it allows it somewhere, and somehow it doesn't allow it somewhere. That is the thing that should make you recognize that it is irrelevant for you to think of it whether it is wrong or right. You having a self-independent life, your individual strength should have the ability to overcome the weaknesses in some way in your life, that even if you engage in whatever acts you take, whether there's a law that stands against it or not, you should be able to know that you have the right to be whatever you have to do, but have control over it. Don't abuse that moment. Don't abuse that chance or the action that you have. If you abuse it, that is wrong. This is a basic way of seeing things. The abusing is what necessarily matters, and not the very act that has been specifically ruled or have been set out there to say that you shouldn't do. Those rules are not necessarily, those specific rules are not necessary. It is the self-confidence, the self-control attitude to life is what that matters. And somehow, even in the Bible, it says so also, to have self-control. At some point, if you go through to the New Testament, it reveals that self-control is the key. Doesn't matter what necessarily you have done. You adulterated, you fornicated, whatever way you've been doing all that, or you have done it, or you still do it. You have self-control of your life, and you are not abusing your engagement to anybody, because these things are how life has been for so long. The main concern is the abusing of your life, something that will not bring harm to your own life. Not necessarily God. You go fornicate, you think it has not done something to do with the God? If God fornicates, fine. If it's not, then you have done your fornication, you have your problem. If you end up with some disease, you end up with a disease. You don't think God have that disease too. You have got that disease, not God. So the advice is there in that format. But there are other things which tells you self-injury, which makes you become violent and destructive, and that is more of what I see as something which is making all the groups fall into a situation where they are being cornered somehow, where the advice is to make them feel defensive and strong within themselves, confident to face their issues with every means that they have in their hands. And it has become repeated in all the groups of religious groups. if it's not repeated, something similar along that line, because these are the same measures that they also have to take. Now, it is all